How many jokes do we see about Joe Douglas? Sleepy Joe, daylight savings time, not making any moves at the beginning part of the tampering period. He flubbed up the Bryce Huff situation, but man, Joe Douglas, I could kiss you square on the lips. I love the way this trade went down. The New York Jets trade for Morgan Moses. I want to tell you why it is such a massive impact for this team and how it impacts the number 10 overall pick.
Jets, Jets, Jets!
All right, boys and girls, I'm excited to get into this. The New York Jets trade for Morgan Moses, and it could not be a better move for the New York Jets. It has a massive impact on the way the Jets are going to handle the rest of this offseason. I want to give you guys my plan as well as a bunch of options that the New York Jets have now that they have made this move for Morgan Moses, how our offensive line could look. Oh, I'm all sorts of excited. I'll go over the cost analysis and everything along those lines, but let's hop into it. But before we do, I do want to remind you guys, we do have our tickets on sale for our Talkin' Jets draft party, night one of the NFL draft. We are going to go absolutely wild in person, crowd cam, 3-hour open bar. Head over to talkinjets.com to go get your tickets April 25th at the main event on Long Island. And if you haven't done so already, sign up for the mock draft contest. We're going to be giving away a jersey. It doesn't have to be a Jet jersey. It could be any jersey that you want, but hopefully it's a Jet jersey. Free to enter, and then it scores points and stuff. It's an app called Mockout. I've been using it the last few years. It's a lot of fun to track everything. But scan the QR code or click the link in the description down below, and you guys will be able to get into that. But let's hop in to Morgan Moses coming to the New York Jets and all the different things that come into play with this signing. There's a whole lot. Reliability, the cost factor, both from a draft pick compensation and from a contractual standpoint. The draft, the NFL draft, it now gives us some flexibility, so I'm really excited to get into this. First up, I want to talk about reliability. This is important. The New York Jets and their offensive tackles have been absolutely hampered by injuries, by penalties, by everything. It just sucks. We can't get anyone healthy on this damn team. So first and foremost, how does Morgan Moses' health look? Basically, every year, this dude's in the 90s in terms of snaps played for his team. Now, this past year, he did have 69.2. He sat out 2 games with a shoulder sprain, although I guess he missed a few more things in there, but I have two games down for a shoulder sprain is what I have knocked out there. But that wouldn't be 30% of your season for 2 games. So I don't know exactly why there's missing a little bit right there. But either way, I'm good with rolling on a shoulder sprain and then 90s all the way across the board here for reliability in a health capacity. In terms of Pro Football Focus grade reliability, this guy is super reliable. Look, he never gets below like a 65 or a 70 on his Pro Football Focus grades. I know it's not like a be-all, end-all for Pro Football Focus and stuff, and people get all butthurt about it. But seriously, at least there's some consistency here. You want to look at some of our offensive linemen the last few years, it's all like orange and red, and those are not the good colors you want to see on Pro Football Focus. So reliability from an actual play standpoint, on point. From a health standpoint, on point. And then from a penalty perspective, maybe not as good as you would have expected, at least according to Pro Football Focus. Now, Morgan Moses was with us just 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now, and had only 4 penalties. Now, maybe with the new offense, it changes that a little bit. Hackett's offenses tend to have a little bit more penalties, but they don't have Aaron Rodgers at the helm, and I would argue false starts and holdings will probably be narrowed down with an Aaron Rodgers. And I would say with the last 2 years with the Ravens, 10 penalties and 8 penalties. Now, this is also the accepted and declined penalties. So a little bit of, it's adding everything together in there. But when Lamar holds onto the ball so long, you saw him have like 6-7 seconds to throw the ball sometimes. It's insane. That offensive line was absolutely ridiculous. If we can duplicate that with 2 of the 5 offensive linemen for the Ravens, I'm going to be pretty friggin' happy. But when he holds onto the ball too long, it does put pressure on your offensive linemen to hold and to not get your quarterback hit. So I would think with faster releases from Aaron Rodgers, you're probably not going to see the penalties that you've seen in Morgan Moses' career to date. So I'm not as concerned about this as some other people may or may not be, but the penalty side of thing, I do think we are going to be in a little bit better situation than we were the last few years. Now, in terms of cost analysis, cost from a contractual standpoint and from a trade standpoint. Now, from a contract standpoint, the New York Jets get him on a 1-year, $5.5 million deal. This is the 19th highest paid right tackle in the game. Did you see what Jonah Williams just got? Jonah Williams got $15 million a year on a 2-year contract. $15 million a year. Morgan Moses is 10 times the player that Jonah Williams is. So the Jets did not overpay. In fact, they signed someone for a third the price that's going to be 3 times better, both in a health standpoint and in a playing capacity standpoint. So I absolutely love the contract. Contract makes a ton of sense. If the Jets want to extend him, he's only 33 years old. You could add on a year-by-year basis. But either way, if it's just 1 year, $5.5 million, I'm tickled pink with that too. No issues whatsoever. And I don't know if that necessarily changes how you feel about maybe developing a future offensive lineman. Obviously, with this type of signing, it gives Max Mitchell or Carter Warren a chance to maybe beat out a veteran player, not so much this year, but more so in the future. You know, hey, next year, we might say, hey, look, Morgan Moses, we'll take the comp pick for you if you wind up getting signed somewhere else, because Carter Warren or Max Mitchell is ready to take the reins at the right-hand side. And I really like how that provides that little bit of growth potential for your young players on the roster already from a trade capacity. Now, people are going to get upset with the trade capacity, not so much with the trade, because we had Morgan Moses here just 3 years ago. It's frustrating, like, oh, why did Joe Douglas let him go when we had to trade for him back right now? You could have just signed him and it would have not been a problem. The problem was not Max Mitchell. The problem with Morgan Moses is he wanted to start. He wanted to be the starting right tackle for the New York Jets or for another team. And the Jets said, hey, look, we took Mekhi Becton, number 11 overall. We need to have an open competition between George Fant, Mekhi Becton, and you to have the best 5 offensive linemen in front of our quarterback. And Max Mitchell said, hey, look, dude, I played super good this year. If you're going to have a competition, go sign someone else for competition. I'm going to go find somewhere where a starting job goes. And look, he didn't want to sign with the New York Jets because of that competition. But clearly, you know, I'm sure I would think he's happy to come back here at this point. The Jets have clearly shown that they want him to be around, and they did want to bring him back originally the first time around. Now, the Jets wind up sliding back about 22 picks in the fourth round. So you lose 22 picks, but you gain their 4th round pick. So it's like, you know, slide down of 12 picks, not the worst, or 22 picks, not the worst. And you throw in a 6th round pick. So now the Jets only have 1 6th round pick when they actually were slated for 2 6th round picks. So I'm not too upset with this. And as far as draft picks for the Jets right now, we still have our 1st, 3rd, 2 4ths. We actually have the 4th that's higher, I believe. If Tankathon's correct, maybe Tankathon's wrong here, but I'm pretty sure we still have both 4ths. Obviously, it's the one we already had. We traded one to Baltimore and then slid down. So we have that last pick, I think in the 4th round, is the last pick in the 4th round from the Baltimore Ravens. You have your 1 6th and you have 2 7ths, one of those being Mr. Irrelevant. So the Jets still have plenty of picks. This really did not cost the Jets a whole heck of a lot from a contract standpoint or from a trade standpoint. So from a cost contract analysis, I very, very much like this deal. In terms of the NFL draft, how does this impact the NFL draft and what options are the Jets going to have? I love this. Absolutely love this. Option number 1. At number 10, you can still draft the best left tackle or right tackle. This does not eliminate the need for an offensive tackle. Clearly, you're going to need someone if Morgan Moses at 33 years old is only on a 1-year contract anyway. But it doesn't mean you have to reach. I don't think it necessarily means you have to go out and get someone that has to start right now. So if a Joe Alt falls, or maybe you like an Olu Fashanu, you can take them at left tackle and have them ready to go on the left-hand side. Now, I would say right tackle, I'm a little leery on in terms of staying at number 10 to make this selection because I like Morgan Moses. I want someone that's going to be able to start this year. And if you draft a right tackle, that means he's sitting behind Morgan Moses, and I wouldn't really condone that. But it doesn't take offensive line off the board. Option number 2, you draft a wide receiver or a tight end. Who knows? Maybe an Odunze falls down. I don't think Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. are going to fall that far, but Odunze definitely could. I think Brock Bowers is squarely in play right now. This is probably the biggest boom for the Bowers fans out there. An elite playmaker at potentially wide receiver with Garrett Wilson, running back with Breece Hall, and then Brock Bowers with tight end sounds pretty good. Or maybe you like the idea of a Brian Thomas Jr., a 6'4", 6'5" monster that runs blazing 4.3 speed. Maybe that's your cup of tea. I very much like the weapon, something that the New York Jets could do for Aaron Rodgers that he never had done for him in Green Bay. Remember the time when they could have drafted T. Higgins? Well, they traded up and got Jordan Love instead. So I think the Jets adding a weapon would go a long way with Rodgers, as well as just like looking at the contracts that are absolutely out there for all the wide receivers. Darnell Mooney got $13 million a year. I did not want to pay $13 million a year for Darnell Mooney. And then Calvin Ridley gets like $23 million a year. That's bonkers. Absolutely get a young playmaker in here and save yourself a ton of money in the long run. A 5-year contract on an elite weapon sounds really, really attractive to me. And then number 3, the third option, a trade down that nets you a 2nd rounder. This is by far the most attractive option for me, I think. Being able to slide down, add a 2nd round pick, and you get 2, potentially 3 impact players, assuming your 3rd round player could also maybe start. This is helping out the Jets' offensive line, wide receiver group, maybe even the defense at that point if you have a few different options open to you. I love the ability to trade down. Now, as far as how my big board would fall right now, I'll give you guys my big board, and then I'll give you guys what my ideal draft picks or scenarios would be with this. So as far as my big board, I would have Joe Alt as my number one option. If he makes it to 10, which seems unlikely with the Titans signing Calvin Ridley, you think they're probably going to go offensive lineman at number 7. Maybe they trade out and it's not as big of a need, but either way, that would be my option. Then I'm looking at trade down. And I would very much like to stay somewhere within like the top 15 or 16 picks. Because if you do that, I think you're going to have a few good options here. I really like Brock Bowers. I really like Brian Thomas Jr. in a trade down where you get a second round pick. Then you start looking at some other players. And the reason why I took Fuaga and Latham off my board is because we already have our right tackle. I'd be looking for someone more on the left-hand side if we're going to do anything at all. So Amarius Mims, I love the size profile. I feel like you can be a little bit more risky with him in the event you have a veteran left tackle, and I'll get to that in a second. So I have Amarius Mims above Olu Fashanu right now because of some things that I obviously have planned that I'm going to show you in just a second. Olu Fashanu, I would have no problem with either one of these selections. I just tend to like the idea of going with a weapon and netting a second round pick and figuring it out after that. And then Jackson Powers Johnson, the center/guard from Oregon, is a absolute freak. If you wanted to plug him into the interior of your offensive line and all of a sudden John Simpson becomes a backup guard and you have AVT and Tippmann and Jackson Powers Johnson in the center, that's pretty freaking crazy as well. And this guy's only played 1 year at center, which is bonkers for how good he has performed. But just something right now, my tentative board is how I'm feeling about this right now. Now, in terms of how my plan would shake out and how I want things to really go for the New York Jets, and I want to do it in order here. So let's do this. Sign Bakhtiari. I would sign Bakhtiari, and this isn't necessarily like a right now sign Bakhtiari. This could be in like the summer sign Bakhtiari, but I want the plan in their head to sign a Bakhtiari, to be the veteran left tackle, or a Tyron Smith. You could throw that name in there too, but I do like the idea, and I think it's probably bringing back Aaron Rodgers' best friend anyway. They've had all the Twitter back and forth and the comments and the pictures and everything. It just seems inevitable. If the knee is fixed, he had water on the knee last year. If it's fixed, this guy's a top 5 offensive tackle. Sometimes you have a little bit of risk when you're trying to roll the dice on that type of player. So maybe we call it before the draft, so you know what you're doing going into the draft or whatever. Sign Bakhtiari, get yourself a top-level tackle that also lets you look at Carter Warren and Max Mitchell on either side, sitting behind veterans. Now I feel a little bit more comfortable with our offensive line. So I do like this move. And look, top offensive linemen don't become available. Generally, there's always going to be some type of red flag. Ask the 49ers if they would rather have, a 4th-round pick or the 4th-round pick that they gave away for Trent Williams, who's been one of the best tackles in the league, who was injury-prone heading into that trade. So I very much like the idea of rolling the dice on a Bakhtiari here. Number 2, I would trade down from number 10. I love the idea of adding a 2nd-round pick here, land somewhere between picks 11 and 16. Now, the thought process here is the Vikings sitting at 11, the Broncos sitting at 12, the Raiders sitting at 13, the Saints are at 14, I believe it's the Colts, and then the Seahawks at 15 and 16. And if you can trade with one of these teams that may want to come up for a quarterback, now I know the Colts aren't going to be doing that, but I think the Vikings are the first team that are going to be looking at a quarterback in that little cluster of teams. And if you tell one of the teams in front of you, like, hey, you want to come up for your quarterback? You got to give up a 2nd-round pick because I got your division rival. The Raiders are trying to come up number 10. They want to, leapfrog you, Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos don't even have a 2nd-round pick, so I guess 12 isn't really in play either. But I would want to try and land a 2nd-round pick that would land you another potential starter for this season. I think that is a huge, huge thing to do. So let's say we slide back to like 16. We fall back to Seattle here. I'm taking Brian Thomas Jr. here. I very much want a wide receiver, and seeing how much wide receivers are getting on the open market right now, I have no desire for the Jets to go out and spend $15 to $20 million on a really good wide receiver that isn't named Mike Evans. So I'm going to get our own Mike Evans with even more blazing speed. This is a 6'5", 198-pound behemoth. Runs a 4.33 40. He had 68 receptions last year, damn near 1,200 yards receiving and 17 touchdowns. This was a one-year wonder right now. He exploded. So does he go higher? Honestly, if the Jets couldn't trade down, I would kind of endorse taking this guy at number 10. Like, very exciting size profile. This is the profile that I wanted in a Mike Evans, a T. Higgins, a Mike Williams, a DJ Shark, something like that, that I wanted to have with an Allen Lazard. But this guy's going to be a contested catch monster. I would very much like bringing in a Brian Thomas Jr. here. And then to round out the second round with that pick that you get in this trade down, I would draft Cooper Beebe, the guard from Kansas State. 6'3", 322 pounds. He plays left tackle, left guard, right tackle. 4 offensive positions this guy plays. Talk about positional flexibility, because now you have a guy that could compete with John Simpson at guard if you want. You have someone that could, also compete at the tackle positions with a Max Mitchell, who might be gone after this year potentially if they don't, deem him worthy of a contract extension. Or Carter Warren. It pushes everyone across the line, and this is serious depth now. So now on the offensive line, you're talking about having a Bakhtiari backed up by Warren. You have John Simpson with Wes Schweitzer sitting behind him. At center, Tittman, and then probably McGovern coming back on a contract, a vet minimum contract. I would love to do that. AVT at right guard. You sign a Cooper Beebe to either be his backup in case the injury to the Achilles isn't quite up to snuff, or you have to move some people around. Then you got Max Mitchell as the backup to Morgan Moses, and all of a sudden the Jets are cooking with fire. Boys and girls, I am all sorts of excited for this friggin' move. If you had told me the New York Jets were going to be able to solve one of their offensive tackle position problems with a $5.5 million trade that basically gives up a 6th-round pick and slides down in the 4th, I would say that's probably not likely. I did not see Morgan Moses coming. I am so excited for this. I think you guys should be really hyped up on it. Let me know your plan for how Morgan Moses affects your offseason plan. Do you want to change your draft pick? Do you want to trade down? Is there a certain player you want? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets. Thank you guys so much for hitting the like and subscribe button on these videos. It goes a long way towards growing the channel. And then occasionally I get sponsors like this. So if you want to help support the sponsor of the channel, or maybe just get yourself some cool gear or some good discounts, you can click the link in the description down below. Today's sponsor, 𝐻𝐿𝐼, is going to give you 25% off your order using promo code JetsTalk. Link in the description down below. They've got gummies, THC syrup, THC seltzers. I just discovered these things. They are incredible. As someone who has been trying to cut down a little bit of their alcohol consumption and not, maybe feel as crummy the next day, this has been a godsend for me. Keep me nice and calm, cool, and collected, especially with all the hurdles that our Jets throw our way and all the headaches that we got to deal with as fans. So if you guys want to help support the channel, maybe get yourself a little bit of a discount as well. Support the sponsor of the channel, 𝐀𝐟𝐼𝐿. Thank you so much for watching the show.